once upon a time, in a not so long ago, there lived a kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope, a musical theater program developed for persons with developmental disabilities. And it was a beautiful world I helped pioneer into existence. What a wonderful group of misfits we were. A kaleidoscope of complex patterns and changing colors and limitations, and through these unique filters, creativity emerged. So the first year, I am completely blown away by one particular creative soul. Linda, a little elfin woman, a woman with Down syndrome, and accidental on the musical staff of life. And she completely altered mine. Linda was the hardest working ingenue I ever met. Funny, animated, bossy, and filled with heart presence. Now you would think the teacher would be the teacher and complete herself through the teaching. But what happened was the teacher became the taught. Linda played her dream role as Lori in Oklahoma. Linda choreographed. She even choreographed her Out of My Dreams number from Oklahoma. She taught it to me while she was sitting in a little wicker chair due to her deteriorating hip. Out of my dreams and into your arms I long to fly. Here, why don't you join me? Now put your arms up, you get a kinetic sense of her. We'll be the Linda Lovely Dance Company. Ready? Just follow. I will come as evening comes to a waiting sky. Beautiful. Out of my dream. Linda wrote a musical. A love story, all in the key of C. With the exception of one accidental, a B flat. And she wanted me to help her, and I thought, great. Stephen Sondheim, help! I mean, I know how to do one. I'm not sure I actually know how to write one. But I figured if I just stayed out of her way, just open up space for her to explore with no judgment, no, this is inappropriate interference, she would probably show me how to write one. So once a week, I would descend on her parents' doorstep with a notebook and pencil in hand. I'd sit next to her on the sofa and just ask questions. All right, Linda, so where does this take place? Like, what does it say? A red barn. Oh, well, this must be the little red barn at the Human Resource Center where she would rehearse her shows. It's 6 in the morning. Okay, so what happens? Back door open. In run, Broadway choreographer. He looks around like this. He sees loft, climbs, hides. Wow, Linda, this is really exciting. You've got a lot of action. You've got the audience's attention. What happens next? I don't know. Give me a clue. No, this is your musical. You're writing this. Well, he could say something, someone could enter, he could... Oh, Scott comes in. Oh, great, who's Scott? Community theater director. He has cowboy hat, has guitar. Okay, great, and what happens next? I don't know, give me a clue. No, this is your musical, you're writing this. Well, he could say something, the choreographer could say something. He says, Booth! Booth, where are you? Can you hear my voice? And all the while, I'm writing everything that she says down. Okay, Linda, then what happens? I don't know, give me a clue. And this went on and on and on until Linda had a 10-minute charming little musical with full characters and emotional wants. Now, once in a while I would stop and say, you know, Linda, this might be a great place for a song. Who's going to sing? Stepmother, she has a magic apple in her hand. Began to think and quietly discuss among themselves that Linda Lovely was rather disinterested, or brief moments despondent. Silly mortals, always thinking that everything is about them. For nothing could be farther from the truth. Linda was taking an everything from her slanted little eyes and her tiny little ears and feeling the vibration of sensations in her tiny little frame. Oh, she was in full awareness of her mission, and like the ancient sages of yore, waited for the many neophytes to run their course and finally settle down to learn from the master. But questions being asked of actors or director/choreographer were now being directed to Linda's old friend, and now lately the assistant, and feeling the awkward discomfort in the room, said, "If you have any questions about your characters or bits of business, please direct them to Linda." And that was that. A question flew to our lovely creator. Linda, I'm having trouble with one of my lines, and I was wondering if you could tell me if I was interpreting it correctly. Young man, dressed in black jazz pants, and a t-shirt sporting the show title, A Chorus Line. He stepped back to show Linda his interpretation. "I love you, Judd. You amaze me. I've done this before. I walk away from Judd and I don't believe you." And the actor did that hand gesture that Linda insisted was always put in the show. Well, Linda's eyes widened. She saw it before like she'd always seen in her head. A giggle came forth. This was the first giggle to come from her star for some time now, and quite surprised all who witnessed. "He's really good, let's put that in the show." The rest of the company began to bombard the creator with questions about their characters and interpretation to soothe their tender egos. And Linda would answer with a yes or a nod. But Linda Lovely did this more out of humoring than anything else. I mean, she didn't need to explain anything to them. Don't they realize that once a creator has put out his creation, it's the interpreter who must make it his own? Linda ended the questioning with, "Speak loudly, be clearly." At the end of rehearsal, when everyone was satiated for the day, the room gathered around Linda as she poised at her walker for the door to glean one last bit of wisdom before the dress rehearsal the next day. Linda seemed confused by the attention at first. Linda, is there any last thing you want to say before the rehearsal tomorrow?" Old friend in an attempt to rescue Linda from the silence. Yes." And then her mind went black. A flash, a picture from her beloved past replaces with her dark. In there, she sees her fellow company members, all dressed for a different show, a fairy tale they co-created together as a company. They're all looking at her, waiting to say her last spoken line, a line that would sum up its entire meaning. Her line was a message. She carried it throughout the entire play and waited for the precise moment in which she was to share it. And sometimes the burden was much too much to bear, so she would have to lean into the narrator for a whispered cue. And yet today, this wasn't a burden at all. Perhaps today was the real precise moment in a larger play that she was to share it. And with no net, no crutch, no prompt, Linda turned to the waiting room and said, "You had the key all along. You come from the power of your heart." And that was that. Linda took her walker, rolling across the row of mirrors. My